Hello Internet, I'm the Disney Brain and welcome to the Liv and Maddie review. Last time, we received a shocking discovery with Liv having developed vocal nodes, thus putting her singing future in question. This time around, the conclusion of that story thread as we dive into the second to last episode of the entire series. Spoiler warning now, so let's get down to business and discuss Voice of Rooney. We start things off with Liv being informed that her surgery was successful, but she'll have to take it easy for a while before she can attempt to sing again. And when she is physically ready, Mama Rooney hired the best vocal coach in the business to get her back on her feet. This, of course, represents the most important story thread in the episode, so we'll continue discussing it after we've handled the side plots, of which there are several, unfortunately. So, Parker and Val are competing in a national competition called Mars Madness, not exactly subtle. And if they win, they could potentially become the future astronauts for a manned mission to Mars, which, based on the current state of space exploration, actually isn't as far off as you might think. And with proper funding, it could legitimately happen within our lifetimes. And guess who's back to challenge them? Yay, it's Artie. I can barely contain my excitement. But this time, he's got a fellow Ginger up his sleeve, as the episode proves to be a major cast reunion. So, the plot resolves itself pretty easily. Evan feels betrayed by Parker, despite Parker not having a choice in leaving, then Evan feels bad, then Parker and Val win. But, in all fairness to Artie, who is an extremely hit-or-miss character comedically, he was pretty entertaining here, if nothing else. We also get a more dubious subplot involving Joey finding a cat, and then proceeding to go overboard with affection, as Joey tends to do. Then we find out that the cat actually belongs to Artie, and yeah, none of this makes any sense. What are the odds that Artie would even bring his cat to California for just a weekend trip? A cat that's never been seen before, so it couldn't have meant that much to him. And what are the chances that Joey, of all people, finds that particular cat at that particular time when he just so happens to be leaving the comedy club? And we learned a few weeks ago that Joey's allowance isn't anything to write home about, so how would he buy all of this? So yeah, not a side plot anyone needed. And with that, let's get back to the main plot. So, after some time passes, Liv is medically cleared to sing again, but she's understandably afraid to try to sing again. It doesn't just make for a good emotional hurdle for Liv to overcome, but it also represents a smart parallel to the time that Maddie injured her leg and was also scared to go all out. The main difference being that Maddie's road to recovery, to the show's benefit, was allowed to be spread out a bit more. But fret not, because Maddie made a few calls and got the band back together to help Liv out. This gives her the confidence she needs to sing again, which she can do now, which is timely because Broadway is a callin'. Also, as some of us predicted, Liv and Holden will probably work things out when they both end up in New York. And that's Voice of Rooney. Despite a ton of different plot lines, not a lot actually happens in this one, and I do think we could have gotten a much better episode by focusing more on Liv's surgery and subsequent recovery versus only part of the recovery and then a conclusion most of us expected. Utilizing the angle of Liv having a psychological reason for not wanting to sing again after overcoming a physical reason was a smart choice, but it's really the only thing of consequence that happened here. Everything else was so disparate to what Sing It Live or Rooney beautifully built up, and I was honestly expecting a bit more. I think in addition to focusing more on the recovery stage here, what they should have done was give this arc a little more room to breathe in general. By rushing through the significant hurdle, it takes away the build-up, which in turn compromises the impact of the eventual resolution. Additionally, they could have used that time to allow Liv to find herself beyond singing. For example, they could have allowed her to consider actually going to college and figure out what she might study when she gets there. After all, she had originally planned to go to Beloit before Cali Style happened, and since this plot thread already resolved before the finale, there was no stopping this show from making this story more of a season-long battle. It's an okay episode, all things considered, but considering that this singular episode technically takes place over several weeks, there was definitely a much better episode buried in there. All in all, there really isn't too much to say here. It was nice to have a few old cast members return, Artie was actually kind of funny here, and Liv is probably headed to Broadway, which is giving me Glee flashbacks all of a sudden. But I fully expect this show to go out with a bang a week from now when End of Rooney literally ends the series. And when that happens, I'll try to do something similar to what I did when Girl Meets World was ending, where I talk about the main characters individually and recap the show to an extent. Except this time, I'll probably have a lot more to say for one very obvious reason. So, when we get there, we'll say our final goodbyes to the Rooney family. And until then, thanks for watching.
Miss Karsh, announce my partner.
You did not just snap at me.
Sorry, please announce my partner.